Let's have a serious conversation about a 4-letter word that we all hate. Debt. Debt becomes us. We are embedded in it, and it's something that we just can't get away from. That's on a personal level. But let's look at a level even greater than you as a person or me as a person. Let's look at those who run big cities. Big cities like New York, Atlanta, LA, Chicago. You see, Chicago is the 3rd largest city in the United States, and it has a lot of problems, but it's a big financial hub. But to upkeep Chicago costs a lot of money. You see, to bring infrastructural projects to Chicago is one thing, to maintain them is another. You need a lot of staff there, you need healthcare, you need school systems, and we'll get to that in a moment. But you also need good leadership. Good leadership helps you maintain those things without having to do so much borrowing to add to that debt. But this is something that's tricky because we also know that taxation is what helps stop a lot of debt. But Chicago is really good at taxing. They're just not good at spending the tax money. Fast forward. Now we got a little bit of understanding of where I was going with this. Let's talk about Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. He's somebody that people just don't trust with the money. He's a progressive, which is like an ultra liberal who doesn't know anything about infrastructural spending, just borrowing all the time. And he's terrible with money. How do we know that? Well, let's let this person talk about what he's doing for the migrants.
It's 68,000 Chicagoans that are homeless. Majority of them are black. Our black kids are running rampant out here. Record carjackings, record auto theft, and robberies. Downtown has 3 to 4 illegal families on every block begging for work and selling Kit Kat bars after $1 billion was spent on them. Where is that money? Where is that money?
That's right, Brandon Johnson. What happened to the money? Nobody knows what happened to the money. Then he tried to do a real estate tax called Bring Chicago Home, which ultimately failed. Now, this was supposed to help people that were tenants who had low incomes, but then it would have raised their rent in some other way because he's stupid. What has happened is that people just don't trust the process. Now, when people feel like there is a low confidence in you as a mayor, you get problems like this.
Developing story today, he has not been in office for an entire year yet, but there is an effort underway to recall Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson.
And the man heading the effort says he is among those not happy with the mayor's performance. Our Charlie Wojciechowski joins us now with his plan. Charlie?
Well, Michelle, Alex, in Illinois, you can hold a special election to recall the governor, but not the mayor of Chicago. And Dan Bolin says he wants to change that. He wants your help by way of a petition he is circulating to start the process of putting the idea on the ballot.
We should be able to, when we make a mistake, say, hey, we made a mistake, it might be time to recall this.
Dan Bolin says he thinks Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson has lost his way, and a mechanism needs to exist that allows voters to recall him.
I'm not trying to attack the mayor personally. It's just about having good governance.
That's why Bolin has launched an initiative called Recall this fall, filing the necessary paperwork earlier this month to give Chicagoans the ability to recall their mayor. The first step will require 56,464 petition signatures to get on the fall ballot.
You have to make the mayor accountable. The mayor is accountable to all the voters of Chicago.
So people want to recall the mayor because they feel the mayor is incompetent. He isn't the only Democratic mayor that goes through this. Recently, his buddy Tiffany Henyard, right there in Dalton, Illinois, has so much of a low vote of confidence, she tried to motion to buy some property for the village of Dalton. And this is what happened.
On the agenda is a motion to approve the purchase of 5 residential properties, 1 commercial property from the Cook County Land Bank. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a motion and second? Any discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
We wouldn't trust you to buy penny candy. If you think we're about to let you buy properties,
I could care less. You pick your vote, choose what you want. This is, again.
The Village of Dalton is not in the real estate business. We're not buying no properties.
Okay, then why y'all motion and second it then? Don't motion and second that.
We had a discussion because we want the people to know why we're not. Because you would get up here and lie and be like, they don't want to buy the properties and they don't want to spend no money. So we motion and second, like we can do in Robert's Rules of Order, and discussion. The discussion is, we don't trust you to buy penny candy, and no, we're not buying no property because the Village of Dalton is not in the business of property. Y'all done already stole about 60 houses, so ain't nobody gonna deal with you buying no property. So that's the end of my discussion.
Again, a vote of no confidence from trustees and people in the city. This is very similar to Brandon Johnson. Now, what is Brandon Johnson trying to do to get more funding for the city? Now remember, he is an educator. He came out of Chicago public school system. And so now he needs to go to the governor to ask this.
Chicago Mayor Johnson spending today in Springfield meeting with state leaders on a number of topics.
Among them, Chicago public school funding from the state. Tia's back in Studio 32 with more on the mayor's trip south.
Well, Sylvia and Terrence, that funding plea comes amid negotiations over a new teachers union contract and as a Senate committee hearing happens on the extension of a moratorium on school closings until 2027, approved by the House last month. Any state funding will be welcomed as CPS faces a budget shortfall of at least $391 million next year. That's according to a report by the Chicago Tribune. Mayor Brandon Johnson is reportedly asking for $1 billion in state funds towards schools, including adding to the teachers' pension funds. State leaders are expected to take a hard look at any budget request in the name of being economical. The existing Chicago Teachers Union contract is due to expire June 30th.
All right, Mr. Brandon Johnson, you want $1 billion for the state to fund what you need. But you're the same guy that's been an advocate or the migrant crisis, which has taken a lot of money from Chicago. Now, you can slice it how you want. You know, the city might be getting some money from the federal government and all of this, but not quite, because the added expense of what happens for the migrants committing crimes or, you know, taking up other resources, it costs the city. And now, because you guys are like a sanctuary city, you're going back to the same people that caused the problem for you and asking them for money.
NBC5 Investigates is taking the city of Chicago to court to obtain records related to the migrant crisis.
For months, our team has reported on problems inside migrant shelters here in the city and has exposed how millions in taxpayer dollars were being spent. And tonight, we're trying to understand why certain city records were withheld. Investigative reporter Bennett Haberly joining us now with more. Bennett.
Yeah, Allison, Stephan, public records are vital to our reporting and to the public's right to know. In our quest to understand how the city responded to the migrant crisis, we combed over thousands of pages of reports, and in doing so, realized we may be missing some more. And now we're suing to obtain what should be public information.
That's like going to the same person who robbed your ass and saying, hey, could you rob me again? I'm pretty stupid. And the reality is, Brandon Johnson and Chicago administrative staff, they are stupid, very much so. They have no idea what they're doing. And what I'm saying is, even if he gets to $1 billion, who's to say what he's gonna do with it? Like, remember, this particular news station sued Brandon Johnson's administration staff because of this.
NBC5 Investigates is taking the city of Chicago to court to obtain records related to the migrant crisis.
For months, our team has reported on problems inside migrant shelters here in the city and has exposed how millions in taxpayer dollars were being spent. And tonight, we're trying to understand why certain city records were withheld. Investigative reporter Bennett Haberly joining us now with more. Bennett.
Yeah, Allison, Stephan, public records are vital to our reporting and to the public's right to know. In our quest to understand how the city responded to the migrant crisis, we combed over thousands of pages of reports, and in doing so, realized we may be missing some more. And now we're suing to obtain what should be public information.
That's right, the money was not even there on the website. They couldn't even find out how the migrant funding money was being spent. That's $300 million. You mean to tell me a guy like Brandon Johnson is smart enough to get $1 billion and actually do something right with it? The question is no. You see, progressives, and that could be a term that none of us can define, right? It just means somebody who is, for me, ultra liberal and bat crazy about anything to do with giving money away. That's a progressive. The thing is, Chicago's done an excellent job running employers out of the city. Walmart is gone. Boeing left. Nobody wants to bring their business to Chicago like before. That's something that could be addressed. If they could do so, it would create more tax revenue for Chicago. It would also create more jobs. It would create better funding opportunities and more training opportunities for Chicago residents. That's not what progressives want to do. They want to spend their money like they want and then beg for what they need. And we need to stop letting democratic cities like this bankrupt not only the city, but the country. Look at what's going on in Dalton, Illinois, nearby. That's like, I don't know, she's almost like $10 million in the debt probably right now. Brandon Johnson is gonna do the same. Not in the same way that she's doing it per se, but by being somebody that's silly and doesn't know how to manage his money. We need to understand these are real serious problems because the people that get affected by this is Black Chicago. This is why people thought it was a joke when Brandon Johnson wanted to, bring investors into these communities that were underserved. Well, how are you going to bring investors into this community that are underserved when you're asking for $1 billion because you can't even fund Chicago public school system, which of course is overran by migrants? Give yourself a round of applause, Mayor. You are one smart guy. I was just joking. You're really dumb, bro. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, LJ Jackson, here on the King Ghana YouTube channel. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.